You would think the hip-hop world had already seen everything. The feuds, the diss tracks, the public breakdowns, the shocking court cases. But right now, something is unfolding that has the entire industry whispering, watching, and honestly, panicking. Because according to multiple reports suddenly circulating online, several well-known rappers have allegedly been picked up by authorities just days after new footage tied to 50 Cent's documentary quietly leaked. Now here's where it gets even more intense. These reports aren't just talking about random arrests, they're suggesting a connection, a link between what was shown in that leaked footage and what's happening right now behind the scenes. And while nothing has been officially confirmed, the timing has people raising eyebrows. Fans are shocked, insiders are staying quiet, and social media is moving faster than anyone can keep up with. But what really pushed this situation over the edge is 50 Cent himself. Instead of staying silent, instead of distancing himself from the chaos, he allegedly jumped straight into it. Posts started appearing, captions that felt more like warnings than jokes, clips being shared that only added fuel to the fire. And suddenly, it didn't feel like trolling anymore. It felt calculated. You've got people asking, did he know this was coming? Because this isn't the first time something like this has happened around one of his projects. Every time 50 Cent steps into documentary territory, something shifts. Reputations get questioned, stories start resurfacing, and the line between entertainment and real life starts to blur in a way that makes everyone uncomfortable. And now, with these new reports of arrests, things have escalated to a level nobody expected. Artists who once felt untouchable are now being mentioned in the same breath as investigations. Friendships are being tested, alliances are starting to crack, and behind closed doors, people are allegedly scrambling to protect themselves before their names get dragged into something bigger. The question isn't just what's happening, it's why it's happening right now. And more importantly, who's next? The situation didn't explode all at once. It crept in slowly, almost like a rumor nobody wanted to believe at first. One minute, everything in the industry looked normal on the surface. Artists promoting music, posting luxury lifestyles, laughing on live streams. And the next minute, timelines started filling up with whispers that something was off. Fans began noticing certain names going quiet, appearances getting canceled without explanation, and comment sections turning into full investigations of their own. Then came the first report. A blog post surfaced claiming that a well-known rapper had allegedly been detained for questioning. No official statement, no clear charges, just a vague line about authorities looking into activities connected to recent media leaks. At first, people brushed it off. Fake headlines are nothing new. But then another post dropped, and another. And suddenly, it wasn't just one name anymore, it was multiple. Fans were shocked. Confusion turned into panic almost overnight. "Yo, what is going on?" one commented under a trending clip. "This can't be real. Why all at the same time?" another asked. And that question, why all at the same time, started becoming the center of everything. Because just days before all of this, those leaked clips tied to 50 Cent's documentary had started making rounds. They weren't supposed to be public. They were rough, unpolished, and according to reports, taken from footage that was never meant to leave private hands. But once they hit the internet, there was no stopping it. People who saw those clips started connecting dots immediately. The footage allegedly showed tense conversations, behind-the-scenes moments that painted certain artists in a completely different light. Not polished interviews, not controlled narratives, but raw, uncomfortable exchanges. Voices raised, accusations thrown, people saying things they probably never expected anyone else to hear. And that's when things began to feel different. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it felt like exposure. Industry insiders started speaking in careful tones, choosing their words like every sentence could come back to haunt them. One anonymous source reported said, "There's a lot in those clips that shouldn't have gotten out. A lot of people are nervous right now." Another added, "It's not about what's confirmed, it's about what people believe they heard." And belief in this industry spreads faster than truth. While all this was happening, 50 Cent didn't stay quiet. In fact, he leaned into it in a way that only he can. Instead of denying involvement or trying to calm things down, he started posting. Not direct statements, but the kind of captions that make you stop and read twice. One post reported showed a blurred screenshot from the leaked footage with a simple line underneath. "Funny how things start making sense when the camera never stops rolling." Fans flooded the comments instantly. He knows something. This ain't just trolling anymore. Nah, this feels serious. And that's when emotions ran high across the entire community. Artists who had nothing to do with the situation started speaking up, some defending their peers, others distancing themselves as fast as possible. One rapper went live, visibly frustrated, saying, "Don't put my name in nothing I ain't part of. Y'all always trying to drag everybody into drama." But even that response didn't calm anything. If anything, it added more fuel. Because now, people were watching reactions just as closely as the original story. Every post, every silence, every deleted tweet became evidence in the court of public opinion. Behind the scenes, things reportedly became even more intense. Managers were scrambling, publicists were working overtime, trying to control narratives before they spiraled too far. One insider allegedly revealed that emergency meetings were being held, with teams advising artists to stay low and don't engage. But staying low in a moment like this only made people look more suspicious. And then, the second wave of reports hit. This time, it wasn't vague anymore. Names were being listed. Again, nothing officially confirmed, but the way the reports were written made it feel real enough for the internet to react. Timelines exploded. Hashtags started trending. Fans began digging into old interviews, resurfacing clips that suddenly seemed more important than they did before. Wait, didn't he say something like this years ago? This clip hits different now. Nah, this is starting to connect. The narrative was building itself in real time. And right in the middle of it all, 50 Cent kept posting. One clip allegedly showed him laughing during an interview, saying, "People get real quiet when the truth starts making noise." The tone wasn't serious, but the timing made it feel like a message that people couldn't ignore. Some fans found it entertaining, others found it uncomfortable, because at this point, the line between content and real-life consequences was getting blurry. And that's where the tension really started to peak. Because if these reports were even partially true, it meant that something bigger was happening behind the scenes, something that went beyond music, beyond beef, beyond internet drama. And suddenly, the industry didn't feel like a place of power anymore. It felt like a place where everything could change overnight. Friends started looking at each other differently. Collaborations got paused. Events that were supposed to be celebratory turned into quiet, cautious appearances where everyone was watching what they said. One artist reportedly pulled out of a major event at the last minute with no explanation. Another disabled comments on all their posts, and a third posted a cryptic message that simply read, "Not everything you hear is what it seems, but not everything is fake either." That line alone sent fans into a frenzy, because now nobody knew what to believe, and that uncertainty is what kept the story alive. Every hour, new theories were forming. Some people believed the documentary leak was the trigger, others thought it was just a coincidence. A few even suggested that this was all part of a bigger strategy, something designed to shake the industry and force certain truths into the spotlight. But no matter which side people were on, one thing was clear: the damage was already happening. Reputations were being questioned, relationships were being tested, and the sense of control that many artists once had over their image was slipping away. And as the noise kept growing louder, one quiet thought started creeping into everyone's mind. If this is what happens when just a few clips leak out, what happens when everything else comes out too? Too much. That was the word being repeated quietly behind the scenes. Too much had already come out, and according to some voices close to the situation, there was still more that hadn't even surfaced yet. That idea alone started shifting the entire mood from curiosity to fear, because now it wasn't just about what people had seen, it was about what they hadn't seen yet. And that's when the conversation started changing tone. Instead of laughing it off or treating it like another viral moment, artists began choosing silence. Interviews got canceled, radio appearances were postponed. Even social media, which is usually nonstop, suddenly felt slower. People were watching, waiting, trying to figure out their next move without making the wrong one. One insider reportedly described it like this: "It's like everybody hit pause at the same time. Nobody wants to be the next headline." And that fear didn't come out of nowhere, because the more people revisited those leaked clips, the more details they claimed to notice. Small things that didn't seem important before were now being analyzed frame by frame. A certain tone in someone's voice, a line that sounded like a joke at first, but now felt like something else. Moments where people looked uncomfortable, where conversations seemed to stop abruptly. Fans were connecting dots in ways that nobody expected. Why did he say that like that? Look at his face right here. Something's off. Nah, this is deeper than we thought. And once that kind of energy takes over, it's almost impossible to slow it down. At the same time, reactions from people close to those being mentioned started adding even more layers to the story. One artist's close friend reportedly went live, clearly emotional, saying, "Y'all don't understand how fast rumors can destroy everything. Y'all just watching it like it's entertainment." But even that statement got split into two sides. Some people felt sympathy, others saw it as confirmation that something serious was happening. Emotions ran high across every platform. Family members who usually stay out of industry drama were suddenly being pulled into conversations they never asked to be part of. One relative of a rapper whose name was circulating allegedly posted, "We're praying through this and staying strong." That single sentence was enough to send fans into speculation mode again. Praying for what? Why would they say that if nothing's wrong? And just like that, another wave of attention hit. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's presence in all of this kept growing louder without him ever fully explaining anything. His posts continued, each one carefully worded in a way that gave just enough to keep people guessing, but never enough to be directly tied to any claim. One clip that started trending showed him sitting back during a podcast moment, smiling slyly as he said, "When people hear themselves later, that's when things get uncomfortable." It didn't name anyone, it didn't reference anything specific, but the timing made it feel intentional. Fans flooded the comments again. "He's definitely talking about the leaks. This man playing chess while everyone else playing checkers. Nah, he's exposing something without saying it directly." And whether that was true or not didn't even matter anymore. The perception had already taken over. Because in situations like this, perception becomes reality faster than facts can catch up. Behind closed doors, things reportedly became even more complicated. Conversations that used to be casual turned into serious discussions about legal risks, public image, and long-term damage. One anonymous source claimed that some artists were even reviewing past footage, trying to remember exactly what had been recorded and where it might have ended up. Imagine that kind of pressure. Knowing that something you said or did, maybe years ago, could suddenly reappear in a completely different context, without warning. That alone was enough to make anyone uneasy. And then came another unexpected twist. A second batch of rumored leaks began circulating online. Not full clips this time, but descriptions, screenshots, alleged transcripts of conversations that people claimed were part of the same documentary material. Again, nothing confirmed, but the detail in these posts made them feel real enough to spread like wildfire. Some of these alleged conversations painted intense situations, arguments that escalated quickly, moments where trust seemed to break down in real time. And what made it even more dramatic was the way people started assigning names to those moments, even without proof. This has to be about him. No, this sounds like that situation from last year. Everyone had a theory, and theories, in a moment like this, can be just as powerful as facts. Artists who had previously stayed quiet now started responding indirectly. One rapper posted a video saying, "Y'all gotta stop believing everything you see online. People editing things, twisting narratives." But even that response got dissected. Why even say that if it's not about you? He's nervous, you can hear it. There was no winning. Every reaction, every silence, every move was being interpreted in a way that kept the story alive. And right in the middle of all this, something else started happening that made everything feel even more real. Brands began stepping back. Quietly, without announcements, partnerships started disappearing. Promotional posts got deleted. Upcoming campaigns were suddenly delayed. It wasn't loud, but people noticed. Why did that deal vanish? Wasn't he just promoting this last week? And once again, speculation filled the gaps. Because when money starts moving differently, people pay attention. And that's when the mood shifted from chaos to something heavier. It wasn't just drama anymore. It felt like consequences. Fans who were once entertained started expressing concern. Some said the situation had gone too far. Others said this was exactly what
needed to happen for the industry to change. Debates broke out everywhere, with people arguing over whether this was exposure or exploitation. This ain't entertainment no more. Nah, let everything come out. People need to know. The divide grew wider by the hour. And through all of this, one question kept coming back again and again. What exactly is in that documentary? Because if just leaked fragments, rumored clips, and partial conversations were enough to create this level of chaos, then whatever the full project contains must be something far more intense. And that thought alone kept everyone on edge, waiting, watching, hoping their name wouldn't be the one that shows up next. Waiting like that does something to people. It changes how they move, how they speak, even how they look at each other. And that shift became impossible to ignore as the days went on. What used to feel like a tight circle in the industry suddenly felt fractured, like everyone was quietly stepping back from one another without saying it out loud. One artist who had been regularly collaborating with some of the names now circulating reportedly unfollowed multiple people overnight. Fans caught it instantly. Why did he unfollow him? They were just together last week. And just like that, a simple action turned into a headline. Another artist posted a clip from a studio session with a caption that read, "Loyalty matters more now than ever." It seemed harmless, but in the middle of everything going on, fans treated it like a message. People started asking who it was directed at, what it meant, and whether it hinted at something deeper happening behind the scenes. The family was left divided in ways nobody expected. Some people stood by their friends publicly, showing support no matter what the rumor said. Others chose distance, staying quiet, avoiding any association that could pull them into the situation. And that contrast only made everything feel more intense, because silence started to speak louder than words. Then came one of the most talked about moments. A leaked audio clip began circulating, again unconfirmed, but detailed enough to grab attention. It allegedly captured a heated argument between two voices that many believed belonged to well-known figures. The tone was tense, voices raised, accusations thrown back and forth in a way that felt raw and unfiltered. "You think this is just business?" one voice reportedly said. "You don't understand what's about to happen," the other responded. Those lines alone were enough to send fans into a frenzy. Everyone started trying to match the voices, slowing the clip down, replaying it over and over. Some claimed they recognized the voices instantly. Others said it could be edited. But regardless of what was true, the impact was immediate. Emotions ran high again. Comment sections turned into debates. Timelines filled with breakdowns of the audio, people analyzing tone, background noise, even breathing patterns. It felt less like entertainment and more like an investigation being carried out in real time by millions of people. And just when things couldn't get more intense, 50 Cent posted again. This time, it wasn't subtle. He shared a short clip of himself shaking his head, laughing slightly, and saying, "People forget, everything gets recorded eventually." No names, no context, but the timing made it feel like a direct response to everything that was unfolding. Fans didn't hold back. "Nah, he's definitely talking about the audio. This man knows way too much. He's not denying anything. That's the scary part." And that's where the tension really peaked, because at this point, it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. Every new development, every new rumor, every new piece of content seemed to connect back to the same source, the documentary. Whether that connection was real or just perception didn't matter. The narrative had already taken shape. Behind the scenes, reports suggested that some art
needed to happen for the industry to change. Debates broke out everywhere, with people arguing over whether this was exposure or exploitation. "This ain't entertainment no more." "Nah, let everything come out. People need to know." The divide grew wider by the hour. And through all of this, one question kept coming back again and again. What exactly is in that documentary? Because if just leaked fragments, rumored clips, and partial conversations were enough to create this level of chaos, then whatever the full project contains must be something far more intense. And that thought alone kept everyone on edge, waiting, watching, hoping their name wouldn't be the one that shows up next. Waiting like that does something to people. It changes how they move, how they speak, even how they look at each other. And that shift became impossible to ignore as the days went on. What used to feel like a tight circle in the industry suddenly felt fractured, like everyone was quietly stepping back from one another without saying it out loud. One artist who had been regularly collaborating with some of the names now circulating reportedly unfollowed multiple people overnight. Fans caught it instantly. Why did he unfollow him? They were just together last week. And just like that, a simple action turned into a headline. Another artist posted a clip from a studio session with a caption that read, "Loyalty matters more now than ever." It seemed harmless, but in the middle of everything going on, fans treated it like a message. People started asking who it was directed at, what it meant, and whether it hinted at something deeper happening behind the scenes. The family was left divided in ways nobody expected. Some people stood by their friends publicly, showing support no matter what the rumors said. Others chose distance, staying quiet, avoiding any association that could pull them into the situation. And that contrast only made everything feel more intense, because silence started to speak louder than words. Then came one of the most talked about moments. A leaked audio clip began circulating, again unconfirmed, but detailed enough to grab attention. It allegedly captured a heated argument between two voices that many believed belonged to well-known figures. The tone was tense, voices raised, accusations thrown back and forth in a way that felt raw and unfiltered. "You think this is just business?" one voice reportedly said. "You don't understand what's about to happen," the other responded. Those lines alone were enough to send fans into a frenzy. Everyone started trying to match the voices, slowing the clip down, replaying it over and over. Some claimed they recognized the voices instantly. Others said it could be edited. But regardless of what was true, the impact was immediate. Emotions ran high again. Comment sections turned into debates. Timelines filled with breakdowns of the audio, people analyzing tone, background noise, even breathing patterns. It felt less like entertainment and more like an investigation being carried out in real time by millions of people. And just when things couldn't get more intense, 50 Cent posted again. This time, it wasn't subtle. He shared a short clip of himself shaking his head, laughing slightly, and saying, "People forget, everything gets recorded eventually." No names, no context, but the timing made it feel like a direct response to everything that was unfolding. Fans didn't hold back. "Nah, he's definitely talking about the audio. This man knows way too much. He's not denying anything. That's the scary part." And that's where the tension really peaked, because at this point, it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. Every new development, every new rumor, every new piece of content seemed to connect back to the same source, the documentary.
Whether that connection was real or just perception didn't matter. The narrative had already taken shape. Behind the scenes, reports suggested that some artists were now actively trying to get ahead of whatever might come next. One insider allegedly said, they're trying to control the story before it controls them. That meant statements being drafted, legal teams being consulted, strategies being put in place just in case things escalated further. But controlling a story like this, once it's already in motion, is nearly impossible, because the audience had already decided that something bigger was happening. And once people believe that, they start looking for confirmation everywhere. Old interviews resurfaced again, but this time with a different lens. Moments that once felt normal now felt loaded. A laugh that seemed harmless before now felt forced. A vague answer now felt like someone avoiding the truth. He dodged that question. Why did he look nervous here? Every detail became a clue. And then came another unexpected reaction that added even more weight to everything. A close associate of one of the artists reportedly posted a long message late at night saying, "Truth always comes out one way or another. Just remember that." The post was deleted within minutes, but screenshots had already spread everywhere. Fans were shocked. Why delete it so fast? That sounds like a warning. And once again, the cycle repeated itself. Speculation, reaction, more speculation. Meanwhile, events that were supposed to bring the industry together started feeling different. One major gathering reportedly had a noticeably tense atmosphere. People who usually laughed and celebrated together were said to be keeping conversations short, avoiding certain topics, and sticking to small circles. One attendee allegedly described it as a room full of people acting normal, but nobody really relaxed. That kind of energy doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from uncertainty. And uncertainty was everywhere. Some artists started using their platforms to push back against the narrative entirely. One went live and said, "Y'all creating stories that don't exist. Stop linking everything together." But even that didn't land the way it was probably intended, because by now, the audience wasn't just listening to what was being said, they were reading between every line. He sounds defensive. Why even address it if it's nothing? There was no neutral ground left. And right in the middle of all this, the idea of the documentary itself started to grow into something bigger than anyone expected. It wasn't just seen as a project anymore. It became almost like a symbol, something that represented exposure, power, and the ability to shift narratives with a single release. People started asking deeper questions. What if this is just the beginning? What if there's more footage that hasn't leaked yet? What if the full documentary changes everything again? Those questions didn't have answers, but they didn't need to, because the possibility alone was enough to keep everyone on edge. And as the noise kept building, one thing became impossible to ignore. This situation wasn't slowing down. It was building towards something bigger, something that hadn't fully revealed itself yet, but was already starting to reshape how the entire industry moved, spoke, and trusted each other in ways that might not go back to how they were before. Before long, that feeling of something bigger coming stopped being a quiet thought and started turning into visible changes everywhere people looked. The conversations weren't just happening online anymore, they were happening in real-life spaces too, in studios, in meetings, in private rooms where phones were suddenly being turned face down or left outside altogether. Because now, trust itself was being questioned. One producer allegedly told a small group during a session, "We gotta be careful what we say in here. You never know what's being recorded." That single sentence spread quickly once someone shared it online, and it added another layer to everything already happening. Fans were shocked again. They're scared to even talk now? This is getting crazy. And it really was. Because the more people reacted like that, the more it confirmed what everyone was already starting to feel. That whatever was tied to those leaked clips had gone beyond just entertainment. It had created an environment where people were second-guessing everything. Even friendships started looking different. Two artists who had been close for years were suddenly seen avoiding each other at an event. No argument, no public fallout, just distance. Fans noticed instantly. They didn't even stand next to each other. Something definitely happened. And just like everything else, that moment became part of the bigger narrative. The industry felt like it was splitting into sides, even if nobody was saying it directly. Some people leaned into the chaos, posting, reacting, staying visible no matter what. Others pulled back completely, choosing silence, hoping things would pass without dragging them in. But by now, it was clear. This wasn't something you could just wait out, because every day brought something new. Another rumor, another clip, another reaction that kept the story alive. And then came a moment that shifted everything again.
A well-known figure, someone respected across the industry, finally spoke in a way that felt different from everyone else. Instead of denying, deflecting, or reacting emotionally, they reportedly said during a quiet interview, "People need to understand, not everything being talked about is proven, but not everything is random either." That line hit hard, because it didn't confirm anything, but it didn't dismiss it either. It left space for doubt, and doubt is powerful. Fans started debating that statement immediately. What does that even mean? He basically said there's truth in it. Nah, he's just being careful. But the damage was already done, because now even the voices that people trusted weren't giving clear answers, and that uncertainty
kept everything moving. Meanwhile, 50 Cent continued to move in his own way, never fully stepping into the center of the conversation, but never leaving it either. His posts became less frequent, but somehow more impactful. Each one felt like it was placed at the exact right moment to keep people thinking. One post in particular stood out. It reportedly showed him looking directly into the camera, serious for once, saying, "You can joke about a lot of things, but you can't joke about patterns." That word, patterns, stuck with people. Because now, fans weren't just looking at individual moments anymore. They were looking for connections. And once people start looking for patterns, they begin seeing them everywhere, whether they're real or not. Old stories came back again. Situations that had been forgotten suddenly felt relevant. Timelines were being reconstructed by fans who had never been part of the industry, but were now deeply invested in understanding it. This happened back then this happened after, and now this. The narrative started feeling bigger than any single person. It felt like something systemic, and that idea made everything heavier. Because if this wasn't just about one documentary, one leak, or one set of rumors, then what exactly was it about? That question didn't have a clear answer, but it didn't need one to keep the pressure building. Artists continued to move carefully, choosing their words like every sentence mattered. Interviews became shorter, more controlled. Some people stopped doing them entirely. Even music releases started getting overshadowed by the ongoing conversation. One artist dropped a new track, something that would normally dominate the conversation for days, but instead, the comments were filled with questions about the situation. This cool, but what about the rumors? We not ignoring what's going on? And just like that, the focus shifted again. Because once the audience locks onto a story like this, it's hard to redirect their attention. And that's exactly what was happening. The industry wasn't just dealing with a moment, it was dealing with a shift. A shift in how people consumed information, how quickly narratives formed, and how little control anyone had when something started spreading. And right in the middle of it all, one thought kept coming back stronger than before. What happens if more comes out? Because if everything so far had come from fragments, rumors, and partial leaks, then the idea of a full release, a complete version of whatever this documentary holds, felt like something that could change everything all over again. Some people believed it would never happen, others believed it was already being prepared, but nobody knew for sure. And that uncertainty kept everyone watching. Because at this point, it wasn't just about who had already been mentioned or what had already been said. It was about what might come next, who might get pulled into it, what stories might resurface, and whether the industry as people knew it could go back to normal after something like this. Because one thing had become clear through all the noise, all the reactions, all the speculation and tension. This wasn't just a passing moment. This felt like the beginning of something that hadn't fully revealed itself yet, something that was still building, still unfolding, and still leaving one final question hanging in the air that nobody seemed ready to answer out loud. And that's what makes this whole situation so hard to ignore right now, because even after everything we've talked about, there are still so many unanswered questions floating around. Reports are still coming out, new reactions are still surfacing, and the conversation just refuses to slow down. Fans are shocked, emotions are still running high, and the industry itself feels like it's holding its breath waiting to see what happens next. But at the same time, it's important to remember, this is all based on reports, leaks, and what people are saying online. Nothing has been officially confirmed, and a lot of what's spreading is coming from sources that haven't fully been verified. And that's where things get even more complicated, because the line between reality and narrative is getting harder to see with every new update. Still, you can't deny the impact this is having. Friendships look different, artists are moving carefully, and the audience is paying closer attention than ever before. Whether this turns out to be something real, something exaggerated, or something in between, one thing is clear. The conversation isn't ending anytime soon. So now it comes down to you. What do you think is really going on here? Do you believe these reports are pointing towards something bigger behind the scenes? Or do you think this is just another moment where the internet took things too far and created a story of its own? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those situations where every
opinion matters, and every perspective adds something new to the conversation. And if you want more breakdowns like this, more behind-the-scenes drama, and more updates on stories that everyone else is afraid to talk about, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Because if there's one thing we've learned from all of this, it's that the story is far from over.